I'm gonna post on my Twitter. Okay. Thank you everyone for joining. We're gonna wait for people to join and get started in a few minutes. Okay, great. I think we get started. Sorry for starting late. And thanks everyone for joining on a Sunday evening, daytime, morning, wherever you are in the world. My name is Vanessa Tahaya. I am the founder and executive director of One Day Seyoum. And today we're going to be having our strategy launch. This is our wonderful team who will be presenting at different parts of the event today. So I thought we would start with all of us up here, and then we're going to get started with the presentation, and we're going to move around a little bit. If anyone has any questions or any thing they want to ask around any clarifications or anything like that, feel free to just put it in wherever you're watching it, so whether it's YouTube or Facebook, and someone is monitoring the comments field just to make sure everything's coming in. So thank you again, and I think we can get started. So thank you everyone for joining again. I thought we would go over a little bit about One Day Seyoum's history, just for anyone who's new. One Day Seyoum was founded in 2013. I started it after a very long life of hearing about my uncle's case. My uncle, Seyoum Tahaya, is an Eritrean journalist, was imprisoned in Eritrea in 2001 without any trial, any due process. And it affected me a lot as a child, knowing that an individual could go missing like he did, and that was just completely forgotten. And it impacted me to the point where I asked myself, why is no one doing anything for him? And the older I got, the more I started asking, why am I not doing anything for him? So One Day Seyoum for me was a way to do something about something I cared about. And I realized very quickly through that realization that there are other people who also want to do something about these issues, but we don't really know where to start. And so I was inspired by him. I wanted to fight for his release, but I think almost more importantly, I was inspired by his mission and his work to mobilize, to raise awareness, to apply pressure on the Eritrean government, which eventually landed him in prison. And so the goal of the organization, when it was founded, throughout our entire 11 and a half years and up until this moment and in the future, will always be to continue his mission and to continue to be a voice for issues that are happening all over the world affecting Eritreans, where those people cannot speak up for themselves because of systematic structures. So One Day Seyoum is named after Seyoum Tahaya for that reason. We will always continue to raise his name. We'll always continue to fight for his release, whilst continuing his mission to speak up for the Eritrean people. So after it was founded in 2013, One Day Seyoum very quickly became a prominent Eritrean human rights organization. We have worked with members and institutions and other groups, international, regional, local, all over the world. Very quickly, again, we started mobilizing young people mostly to get involved. I think there's a gap between people who care about an issue and then people who want to do something about it. And unfortunately, that linkage isn't always made. I think there's very many people who can move from just knowing and being angry and actually doing. And so One Day Seyoum was an attempt and continues to be an attempt to do that. As I mentioned earlier, there are people like myself who grew up wanting to do things, but my anger and my passion was being wasted. And so our goal was to utilize this passion and actually drive it somewhere, for in a very meaningful way where actually that passion would go somewhere and make a difference. Exactly, that's what people want, right? So that's what we're hoping to do through One Day Seyoum. And we focus on different programs. We're going to speak way more about our programs, and our team members will be speaking more about that. But we do it through different tools. But at the core of it is a movement. It's a movement of mostly young Eritreans, also allies, who come together because we want to do something productive for the issues that are affecting the Eritrean people. So this is, a next step for the organization. We've existed since 2013. And we've always been volunteer run. I think most people who know us know that. But we have done work at a very high level. We've been, running teams essentially for almost this entire period. People have donated, countless hours towards the organization to make our work possible. But it took us, a few years to realize that that wasn't sustainable. It is also really important to highlight that we're dealing with an immense crisis at the moment. The Eritrean human rights crisis cannot almost be compared. It's very difficult to compare to other places, not just happening inside of the country, but also affecting Eritrean refugees outside of the country. And it requires robust civil society for that for us to even have a chance to respond to that adequately. I think starting out, we were very proud, and we continue to be proud of the work that we've done. But there are several times when we feel incredibly frustrated by our limitations because we know that we could do more, but we just don't have the resources to do so. And so we decided to come together and write a long, kind of detailed and incredibly intentional plan where we would look at what are the key issues right now happening, affecting Eritreans. How can we play a part? Like, what's the role that any civil society group can play? But more importantly, what can we do as an organization? And once we have that plan ready, we're ready to kind of move forward and to start fundraising for the first time. Because as anyone who's followed our work knows, we've never fundraised towards our own organization. We fundraised for Sudanese refugees, Eritrean refugees in Sudan 2 years ago, and we did a fundraiser for Eritrean refugees in Tigray a few years ago before that. But we never fundraised towards our organization because we wanted to kind of stay away from all of that. We wanted to just stick to our mission, keep having volunteers and doing what we know that we were really good at, and not kind of mix money into it. But now we feel that we're ready to take this next step in our organization. We have a plan, we have a team, and we're very, very excited to implement that strategy. And that's going to be possible with the help of anyone who's willing and able to donate. So thank you everyone again for joining. And this is kind of an explanation of why we're doing this now, why this 5-year strategy coming out at this stage. Next slide, please. So this is the fun part. We're going to meet the entire team. I'm going to invite everybody up. Let's see here. Perfect. So I think we'll have to sit a little bit further away because the banners. There we go. So I've already introduced myself. Just Vanessa Tahaya. I started One Day Seyoum in 2013. I was born and raised in Sweden. And again, I started One Day Seyoum because I was so impacted by my uncle's story, and I wanted to do something about not just him, but the issues that I realized were happening in Eritrea as a result of my uncle's imprisonment in 2001, the establishment of the dictatorship, which no one will speak more about. So yeah, I've always been passionate about Eritrean human rights and have always wanted to do what I can, and this has been my way of doing it. Next, Leah, please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Leah. I joined ODS as an intern through the Human Rights Foundation's Oslo Scholar Program in the summer of 2020, and I've been working with the organization on and off since. I'm based in New York City, and I support the communications team.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lama Ratu. I am a human rights advocate. I joined in a One Day Seyoum last year as a volunteer. Now I'm working as a researcher and a campaigner. I'm doing internship with One Day Seyoum. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dimiana Haptamariam. I support the campaigns team here at ODS, and I have been a part of this team since the pandemic, so a few years now. I'm also based in the DMV.
Hello, everyone. My name is Simon. I recently joined the team, but I've been following One Day Seyoum since the pandemic as well. I recently I joined up as a researcher, and I support the communications team. I'm also based in the DMV area.
All right, I'll go next. Hi, everyone. My name is Denai. I'm currently supporting the capacity building team for One Day Seyoum. I've supported ODS in various capacities for almost the past 5 years. I've always wanted an opportunity to address a human rights issue in Eritrea from the diaspora, so I'm grateful to One Day Seyoum for that. So I'm happy to be here and speak with you all about our strategy.
Hello, everyone. I'm Alexander. I'm an organizer, human rights advocate, and a program coordinator with immense experience in managing impactful projects across Africa. I joined One Day Seyoum in 2017 as a member, and now contributing my expertise as a lead in capacity building programs. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. And we'll hear way more from everybody as we go through each program area. But now over to Luam, who will be tackling the first aspect of the strategy, which are the key human rights issues. Also, I just want to mention that the strategy is available online on our website. If you go to onedayseyoum.org/strategy, we'll have everything and all the information at the end. But it's divided up into 2 different parts. So we're going to go through each part, all of us. So this is the beginning of that. So thank you so much, everybody. I'm going to leave Luam the floor. We're all going to leave her.
Okay, thank you, Vanessa. Hello, everyone, again. Now I'm present on the ongoing human rights issue in Eritrea. Eritrea is often called one of the most repressive countries in the world, where freedom, democracy, and basic human rights has been denied for decades. Many people are unaware of the scares of these abuses, and it's crucial to share the stories of Eritrean people in their hardship to endure within their country and the immense challenges they face as a refugee. So their struggles are seen, heard, and acknowledged. As most of us know, Eritrea gained independence in 1991 with the Isaias Afwerki as its first president, promising democracy. Instead, he built an authoritarian regime. In 2021, the government shut down the private media, arrested journalists and political opponents, and suspends the constitution. Civil society was crashed, and and even the country's the only one university closed. Since then, Eritrea has become a state where dissent means imprisoned, forced labor, and orders. In the country, it isn't any freedom of press, according to Reporter Without Border in 2024. Eritrea, the last worst in the world on freedom press, and also no independent judiciary as well. The governments maintain total control, silence anyone who dare to change it. One of the Eritrean worst human rights abuses is its indefinite national services, which the UN calls slavery. Eritreans are forced into military or government services within no inside, working under harsh conditions for little pay. Many face torture, sexual violence, and forced labor. Young people are stripped of education and careers, keeping them powerless. Those who try to escape face prison and torture, and even their families are pursuing trapping the entire populations are in the fear. Eritreans live under total governmental control, unable to move freely without permission, leaving the country required exit visa, rarely granted, and thus causes fleeing risks being shot in the border. Inside Eritrea, survival is a daily struggle. Business are restricted, foreign aid is blocked, and essential like food, water, and medical care scarce. National service wages are barely enough to live on, keeping people to focus on their survival to resist. And many of Eritrean people are also dependent on remittance from their beloved one in the abroad. Meanwhile, political prisoners include journalists, religious leaders, and ordinary citizens are jailed in inhumane conditions without any trial, leaving their family in dark without their any fates. Because of these conditions, thousands of Eritreans flee the country every month, despite the dangers what happens to them. And there are currently over 580,000 registered Eritrean refugee and asylum seekers worldwide, and most of this escaping to the neighboring countries in order hoping to reach Europe or other US. However, the journey is full of risks. In many cases, refugees end up to trapped in a war zone, detained or even deported back to Eritrea. In a place like Libya, Eritrean migrants face kidnapping, slavery, and human trafficking also. Even those who reach Europe struggle with long asylum process, uncertain legal status, and limited opportunity for education and work. The traumas of repression, migration, and hostile asylum policies has led to raise mental health issues, violence, and even suicide, especially among young peoples. Why do we always need to explain about this? Because change begins with knowledge, and by understanding this human rights abuses, we can take step towards accountability and justice. The Eritrean people deserve a future where they can be freely without fear, and up to all of us to stand the solidarity within them also. Thank you.
Alrighty. Okay, so I'll be covering the gaps in the current Eritrean human rights response. Just for context, as we were coming up with the strategy, we wanted to first identify the key gaps in order to establish the current situation and cover where we are best to address those gaps. So the key gaps include small movement and limited awareness. The movement is small with limited awareness due to the government censorship and fear of repression. Many Eritreans, including those in diaspora, are unaware of the severity of the situation, and some even support the government due to the misinformation. Secondly, there's a lack of professional and staffed organizations. Few organizations within the diaspora actually have the capacity for long-term strategic work. The growing crisis needs organizations that are capable of engaging international institutions and addressing the human rights abuses, such as refugee deportations and detentions. There's a lack of strategic, long-term, and large-scale campaigns that challenge the government. There's also divisions and non-inclusion. The internal community issues, including sexism, regional divides, and discrimination, do hinder unity, and ECS has exploited these divisions to maintain power. Next, there's a lack of investment into the Eritrean youth movement. There's a need for capacity building to improve the effectiveness, so focusing on political awareness and overcoming those divisions are equally as important. There's a failure to inspire action inside Eritrea, so there's weak diaspora movements which limit the ability to support potential uprisings within Eritrea. So without that strong external support, revolts inside Eritrea are unlikely to succeed. There's a lack of preparation for the transitional period. The diaspora are insufficiently prepared for the inevitable post-ECS transition, so there's needs to support nation building and the challenges of the transition. And then lastly, there's a lack of long-term support to survivors. This includes addressing the mental health crisis among refugees and the lack of support for their professional growth, which continues to remain unaddressed. So that's a quick overview of the gaps in the current response. I'll hand it back to Vanessa to talk about the why now.
Sorry. I was going to say, for anyone who follows the Eritrean situation, I think the why now question is obvious, but we thought we'd state it in our strategy. We wanted to state it as much as possible as a reminder, because we all know that we have a very divided society. And so the goal is for more people to understand these, what we consider quite basic concepts. But number one, there had never been a more urgent situation where we need to kind of get ourselves together and do everything that we can. Situation in Eritrea keeps getting worse and worse and worse. The situation affecting Eritrean refugees continues to worsen. Everywhere Eritrean refugees goes, as Luam already spoke about, they face exploitation, they face abuse, they face uncertainty. This is one of the worst situation that's happening to the Eritrean people, is being caused by a government that's doing this intentionally. It's not by any force that we can't control, it's by someone's choice. And it's just getting worse and worse and worse. And so we are at a point that if this continues, we're at risk, of damage happening to the Eritrean country and the people that can never be reversed. And so it's never been more urgent to act. And we need to, do this as soon as possible. And we need, civil society that's able to respond to the urgency of the situation. Number two is timing. So as we all know, Isaias is getting older, and at some point he's going to die, and that window of time is going to be crucial to see if there's possibilities of something better coming along. But that, is dependent on other people, such as, ourselves, depending on institutions and organizations like One Day Seyoum and other Eritrean human rights organizations, to really be prepared for that moment. And so timing wise, we're at a point when something's going to happen at least in the coming 20 years, and we need to be prepared for that. That's both for change within the country, but it also means change for the movement. Are we ready to take on what's going to be happening at that point in the transitional period? Are we ready? Do we have enough leaders, especially amongst the younger generation, to take on that important role at that stage? Because what's happened in other countries where they face these similar transitions is that young people do and should play a big part. And oftentimes what's happened is that people like Isaias come back, and he has systematically destroyed our youth generation. It's not irreversible at this point, but we have to make sure it isn't. We need to make sure the young people are ready to leave now, they're ready to leave in the future. And so the timing is important, because something's about to happen in the coming 20 years and we need to be ready for it. Can you do the next slide? This slide, to me, I wanted to bring it up, even though it's the urgency situation. I wanted to just bring it up for a second, just so we can understand the urgency of the situation together. What's happening to Eritrea right now isn't normal. And I think a lot of people are blinded by nationalism. Some people are blinded by selfishness. But we need to understand that what the Eritrean government has done to the Eritrean people, it's one of the largest betrayals I've ever seen of a leadership against its own people. And as it says here, without urgent action to address this, the country risks an immeasurable and irreversible loss. So we're dealing with an immense crisis, and it's few people, I think, who deal with this on such a basis like we deal with this almost every single day. Many of you have lived experience of the Eritrean dictatorship, so you see the suffering firsthand. And it's not just about suffering now, but it's the impact it will have in the future. And it has never been more urgent to address this. So in terms of why us, this is more to say, why are we equipped to deliver the strategy? We aim, of course, to continue to be a part of this wider ecosystem of Eritrean civil society. This will never happen with one organization or one individual, but we believe that we're equipped to deliver the strategy that we're presenting or about to present in terms of our programs, because we've existed for so long. This is, we were founded in 2013. We've been operating consistently since then. We've been growing consistently since then. We've been running programs, several programs for all of these years without any paid staff or any budgets, and we've been doing those successfully. We have a large membership. We have over 600 members in most parts of the world. We have legitimacy. We worked within the Eritrean civil society. We worked internationally. We worked regionally. And so we exist as already a trusted and quite successful human rights organization. And we think that we have the ability already to deliver these programs with the support of more resources. We have a deep understanding of the crisis. We really think about these things we've had countless meetings since we were started, but also just all the time, just thinking, brainstorming. The strategy is a product of several years although it's relatively short, every single sentence has been considered and thought about and reflected on, and as a result of our constant analyzing of the situation, trying to understand what's happening, what are the key issues, issues are we not seeing, what are we missing, speaking to people, trying different solutions, seeing what doesn't work, what does work. We have a big membership, and so we have also figured out ways how we can engage that membership in the best possible way, and that's been trial and error several times throughout our history. And now we think we have a good understanding of what is needed to mobilize our membership, but also other people. How do we do that successfully? We've tried all of these things, and we think we have the tools necessary to kind of deliver. Our goal is to become a trusted, or continue to be, and to be a strong institution within the Eritrean ecosystem of civil society, of institutions. We want to be able to do this work at a high level, and we want to continue to do this work for generations, regardless of what governance structure that we have in Eritrea, whether it's a dictatorship, a democracy, or something in between. We want to be able to respond to the issues that the Eritrean people face, no matter what the government is. Starting now, continue with the transitional period, and hopefully in a democratic Eritrea in the future. And all of that work, as I said before, will always be together with other Eritrean civil society organizations and international organizations, because we can only succeed if we're many and we're able to address different aspects of the crisis together. Now it's over to Denai, who will be speaking about our vision and mission.
All right. Thanks so much, Vanessa. All right. Yes, I'm back to speak a bit more on our vision and mission. So, what is informing the organization's current focus and our strategy is our vision and mission, which then is in turn informed by our goals and programming. So, our vision is a future where Eritreans live in freedom, dignity, and peace, with their human rights fully respected and protected no matter where they are. And our mission is to raise awareness of the Eritrean human rights crisis and mobilize action. We are committed to strategic campaigning to expose and combat human rights abuses both within Eritrea and against Eritrean refugees. Through our capacity building programs, ODS aims to empower Eritrean activists and future leaders. And then taken together, these efforts will drive meaningful change and foster a global movement for the rights and freedom of the Eritrean people. And so how do we try to achieve our vision? On the next slide, we do this by the following goals and programs, and our goals align with our programming. So our goals entail an increased awareness of the Eritrean human rights crisis to foster action through media production, events, and digital communications, execute targeted campaigns addressing the human rights abuses in Eritrea and violations against Eritrean refugees, implement capacity strengthening programs for Eritrean activists, empowering them to become more effective in the present and preparing them to become future leaders. And lastly, convert public awareness into meaningful engagement by mobilizing individuals to support the Eritrean human rights movement. And the programs that are aligned with our goals are, and we'll hear a bit more about this soon. The first one is communication. So we will raise awareness about the Eritrean human rights crisis through our comms. Through our campaigns, ODS aims to develop strategic campaigns targeting the Eritrean government and defending Eritrean refugees. With our capacity building program, we aim to strengthen young Eritrean activists through political education, leadership programs. And then lastly, through our community mobilization, we will engage and mobilize, as well as offer opportunities for people to get involved while creating community through our events. So that's a quick overview of how we plan to achieve our vision. I'll now hand it off to Leah and Simon to go over our comms programming.
Great. Thank you, Dunnight. So for comms, across all of our communications, our primary goal is to increase awareness of the Eritrean human rights crisis and inspire meaningful action. We focus on empowering people with the knowledge they need to advocate for change. Our three core focus areas are media and storytelling, events, and campaign support. For media and storytelling, we continue to engage with our community online and across our social media platforms to share impactful stories. Our content aims to challenge misinformation, shift harmful perceptions, and foster a sense of global solidarity. So this includes ongoing projects like our 2001 magazine, our various standalone social media series, and our upcoming podcasts. And I'll hand it over to Simon to speak a little bit more about that.
Yeah. As Leah mentioned, one of our most exciting upcoming projects is the Beles podcast. It's a bi-weekly episodic conversation about all things Eritrea. It's hosted by Andom and Vanessa, and will be directed primarily at engaging and galvanizing the Eritrean diaspora. Our team will prioritize a well-researched and fact-based discussion with topics ranging from historical surveys of the Eritrean Revolution, assessing regional relationships in the Horn, to even evaluating the political implications of sanctions. In our aim to create a continued conversation with our online community, we want to hear from you all as well. Viewer contributions in the form of topic suggestions, discussion questions, and even interviews will be strongly encouraged. More information on the podcast is coming very soon, so please make sure you join our mailing list and check on our website for more information. Thank you.
Right, thanks. So in addition to media and storytelling, the communications team also supports events and programming. We understand that building connections and raising awareness is crucial to our mission. And as part of our outreach, we host both online and in-person events to foster community and spread awareness. In the past, we've hosted panel discussions, screenings, and meetups, both online and in person, and we hope to organize more in-person gatherings in the future to provide a space for conversation, advocacy, and support. Our final focus area, campaign support, is the work that we do to support all of our campaigns. We work closely with the campaigns team to create content that raises awareness and drives action for causes like Purple for Seyoum and our 19 Years campaign. Our goal is to ensure that these critical campaigns reach the right audiences and make an impact for Eritrean human rights. Thank you, and please make sure to follow us across our social media channels.
Thank you, Leah and Simon. Hi, everyone. Again, my name is Timiana.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lam again, and our team works to drive strategic action to challenge oppression in Eritrea and for Eritrean refugee. Our work falls under one of the three pillars: research, lobbying, and mobilization. Research serves as a foundation of everything we do, producing new in-depth research to strengthen our campaign by helping us targeting key issues, understanding and the situation better, and craft more impactful strategies. It is a critical part of how we mobilize, support, and amplify our messages through research. Research is at the core of our work, helping us to address key issues and strengthen advocacy for Eritrean refugee in Ethiopia, in Turkey, in Libya, and other parts of the world. Aiming ongoing deportation, we gather testimonies, analyze asylum policies, and monitoring refugee condition. Our efforts, including assessing government agreements, countering misinformations, and complying data to support policies and recommendation. By engaging with international organizations like Amnesty International and human rights commissions and legal experts, we push for a stronger protection and amplify refugees' voices through continuous research. We document violations and advocate for meaningful action to uphold their rights and dignity.
Yes, and building on that research, we focus on lobbying, which is working with decision makers to change policies both at home and abroad, and influence funding sources that support the Eritrean government. Our goal is to limit the government's ability to oppress its people. And our campaign in response to mass deportation of Eritrean nationals in Turkey is a great example of this. This pressure campaign, which was directed at the president of Migration Management, called for immediate action to halt the deportations, using lobbying as a tool to push the government to reconsider their stance and protect our rights. But research and lobbying are not enough on their own. We have a need for mobilization as well. That's where we work with engaging our international community and showing our strength in numbers by leveraging tools such as petitions, direct actions, protests, and storytelling. One of our most impactful campaigns that we touched on before was the Purple for Seyoum campaign. And this is a proactive campaign that's still ongoing where we're advocating for the release of Seyoum Ali Abdu, who is a U.S. Eritrean national that has been imprisoned without due process in Eritrea since 2012 when she was only 15 years old. Through this campaign, we've gathered almost 500,000 signatures, raising global awareness and demanding her freedom.
Together, all these elements from the core of our campaigns that pushes for real and lasting change. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you all for being here today as we launch our One Day Seyoum's new strategy on capacity building. We know that building a strong, effective movement requires more than just passion. It requires skills, knowledge, and ongoing support. And that's why we're introducing our three focus areas: practical training, professional development, and our political education. Each of these initiatives are designed to ensure that our activists, professionals, and wider Eritrean community are equipped with the right are equipped with the right tools to create real change. Our first initiative is our practical trainings. One of the biggest flaws in many capacity building programs is that they focus on fake scenarios rather than real world application. Too often, applicants are trained in abstract skills without any direct connection to the work they're doing. This results in lost time and energy because learning without application is not enough. And our program is different. What makes our trainings unique is that they're hands on. Instead of only case studies about past movements, we also focus on active, ongoing movements and campaigns. Participants will immediately apply what they have learned to their own work. What the other reason that makes us different is our sustained support. Many programs end with training sessions leaving participants on their own. We ensure that our trainees receive continuous support after the training. And how we do this is through mentorship, connecting trainees with experienced professionals, partnerships, collaborating with other organizations to provide additional training opportunities, and also resource sharing, providing access to digital tools, security training, and strategic planning materials to our participants. We are not just training people, we are building a network of committed, effective campaigners who will continue to fight for Eritreans' rights long after they leave the training room. Our second initiative is our professional development with a specific focus on Eritrean women. We recognize that professional development is critical for building sustainable movements. Within that, we must address the key gap, which is Eritrean women's participation in politics, leadership, and professional spaces. Why we focus on Eritrean women is because Eritrean women have been at the forefront of human rights struggles, but often face barriers to leadership. Professional skills like public speaking, media engagement, advocacy are often inaccessible to Eritrean women due to the structural inequalities. Many training programs fail to account for the additional challenges women face, such as societal expectations, lack of mentorship, and online harassment. Our professional development offers skills training for women, public speaking, negotiation skills, digital security, and media and leadership skills. Safe spaces, women focused workshops that allow open discussions, mentorship and networking, connecting Eritrean women with successful women in advocacy, journalism, law, and human rights. Our goal is to ensure that Eritrean women are leading, shaping narratives, and making decisions that impact our future and the future of our community, basically. And our last initiative is our political education. One of the greatest tools of oppression is ignorance, right? When we do not understand the political system that control us, we cannot resist effectively. That's why our political education um, is a core pillar of our capacity building strategy. So the reason why political education matters for Eritreans is because Eritrea is one of the most closed off nations in the world, with no independent media, no civil society, and a government that thrives on misinformation. Many Eritreans, including us in the diaspora, lack access to information about our country's political and legal structures. What our political education program covers is Eritrean political systems and human rights violations, the structure of Eritrean government, the lack of rule of law, human rights abuses, national service, forced disappearances, lack of free press, and also historical and regional context. For example, how Eritrea's history impacts its how Eritrea's history impacts its present policies, how Eritrea's relationship with Ethiopia, Sudan, and its other neighboring countries is, the role of international bodies like the UN, African Union, and AU. These are all the things that we'll be discussing in our regional, in our political education program. And in conclusion, through our capacity building program, we are building a stronger, smarter, and a more resilient movement. Eritrean activism cannot rely on momentary outrage. It must be sustained by strategic and grounded in knowledge. And I invite you all to be part of this journey, whether by joining our programs, mentoring others, or supporting us in expanding our initiatives. Together, we can create a future where Eritreans are not just speaking about change, but driving it forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Danai, do you want to add anything as well?
Nothing else for me to add, but I'll be supporting this team on all of the points that Alex mentioned just right now. So yeah.
And both Alex and Danai have extensive experience working with this, both in the region but also across Africa. So we're very, very lucky to have both of them. I'm going to now speak about our community mobilization team. That is our key team member, Lulia, who couldn't join today, is a part of, so I'll be speaking about it. So community mobilization, as I mentioned earlier, is at the core of our work. We're a community-led organization. We never want to be like a civil society group that exists on the fringes and just publishes our reports and goes to parliaments and lobbies and goes home. We want this to be led by us, the people who are, passionate, the people who are affected by these issues. That's why we have a very strong membership. We have over 600 members, as I mentioned earlier. We organize and make sure to have a community that's driving this organization forward. The goal, has always been the goal, is to have a group of people who are passionate, who are knowledgeable, and are ready to get involved. And so we put in a lot of effort into both engaging our community around knowledge. So we have a book club, for example, where we learn together, we read together. We have members meetings where we both learn from each other, but also meet to plan, to discuss, and to kind of bring that community together, even though we're online, most of our work. And the goal is really to have a group of people that feel comfortable enough around each other to drive this change together, because we all know that movements there has to be an incentive for people to be a part of it, because it's difficult work, and being a part of something larger, getting to know other people. We've all kind of met through this organization. Many of us in different countries have met whenever we've traveled. Many have become online friends. That really helps kind of the spirit and the engagement as well. So it's not just focused on activism and work all the time, but we try to get to know each other. We try to have more social events. And even though, our online events are there to be productive, it's also a way for us to get to know each other. And so this is really helpful to do online because we're spread out all over the world. But the goal is to really increase on in-person activities as well, because nothing beats meeting in person. And the few times, actually, quite a lot of times, I've been lucky enough to meet with One Day Team members in different places when I've been there. And even though we feel like we know each other, and we really like each other, meeting in person even just once really, really helps. So we're trying to, at the same time as we have an online community, kind of bridge that gap between the offline and online, and do more in-person activities moving forward. We were much better with it actually before COVID, but COVID made it so easy to meet online that we stopped. We haven't really come back to it. So that's definitely part of our strategy, is to increase that. And the goal, again, is to have a community that's ready to get involved. And that's done in different ways. I see people have been asking kind of how they can get involved. And there's different ways we want people to kind of take action. Either it's through signing up for volunteering opportunities. So our community gets regular updates about our work. And there's always ways people can volunteer. There's tasks. So even though we have our team that's been presenting today, there's always stuff that people can help with. There's plenty of tasks that we send out. We send out other opportunities as well, the volunteering opportunities with other organizations, where we can turn kind of passion into productive engagement. And that's kind of the key term here. And then there's also ways people can support through donating, by donating to us, by donating to fundraisers, going directly to individuals who need it, mostly Eritrean refugees. That's also productive engagement that makes our work possible, that makes their lives better, if they're donating to, obviously, like refugee fundraisers. And then, of course, there's just taking action in our campaigns. So we will be, and continue to, because we've always been doing the send out any campaigns that the campaigns team mentioned, that Dimiana and Noam spoke about. That's just possible through our members. Like the mobilization aspect that Dimiana spoke about, that's us coming together as a community, and that's only possible if we have a community to begin with. So this work is really important because it enables both our organization, now that we're going to take donations, it's through our community that we're hoping to be funded, and then it enables the actual work to happen, because most of our work relies on community mobilization. And so this team is very important. And we're very grateful for all of our members. Membership has always been and will always be free. It's not like a paid thing. It's about being together. And then members can, of course, choose to donate if they want to moving forward. But I just wanted to mention that as well. So thank you everybody for listening to our strategy. This is obviously just a snapshot of a much larger plan that we've put together. I'm so grateful to everyone who's put in endless time into every single tiny detail of the strategy. Also, thank you to everyone who's helped out with the reviewing of it, the fact checking, the editing. It's been a long process, and I'm really grateful for everyone who's been a part of it for the past few years that we worked on it. Thank you to everyone who's been helping with the designing, both the cover, that was made by Nala Haile Selassie, and the editing of the design inside and outside. That's been done by Sienna Jacob, who was our editor for the 2001 magazine that we mentioned earlier, and many others. Emma as well, who helped out with the editing, and so many others who've helped in different ways. So thank you, everyone. You can check it out on our website, wonderseam.org or I forgot it in English, but in Swedish is strategy. And then you can read it there. And if you have any questions about it, you can, of course, just contact us. But we're going to be taking questions here as well. But if you read it and you finish reading it and you have any questions, you can always contact us. Again, kind of what I mentioned with the community mobilization, how you can get involved as a member, as a non-member, is quite straightforward. Number one, you can donate. We again have just opened up. Today was the first day that we published our wonderseam.org donate website. So you can go there. If you just go on our website, wonderseam.org, the donation page will come up on the top. By becoming a monthly donor would be incredible, because that can help us plan forward. It can just help us enable like this work. And then you can become a member, as I mentioned, and we talked about it quite a lot throughout this presentation. Our work depends on our community. So you can either become an active participant of the community by becoming a member, or you can follow us on social media, where you can take part in any campaigning work that we do, take action. You can take part of the information that we spread through our communications team, through our political education work, through the capacity building team, and just help us, make our and implement our mission by taking part in all different aspects of our program. So those are the three key ways that you can get involved. And now we're going to open up for questions. So if you have any questions, thanks everyone who's tuned in for this event. If you have any questions, feel free to post them. I know we're live streaming on both Facebook and YouTube, so you can just comment anywhere, and our team is looking out for all the comments. So we're going to be answering all of them. I'm going to bring it back, everybody, now.
Okay, great. Vanessa, the first question was around the work that we've been doing around Eritrean refugees in Libya. I don't know if you want to take that question, or Luam.
Sure, I can start, and then because it's from something in the past. So I mentioned early on that the situation is just getting worse and worse, and that we're kind of going back to how bad it used to be in Libya. I mean, Libya has never been good, but there was a time when it was an immense crisis, and now we're seeing that continuing. We started a campaign in 2017, 2018 called Evacuate Refugees from Libya. The goal was to mobilize civil society across Europe to push for European countries to evacuate refugees from Libya, because we have an obligation to provide safe and legal routes to Europe. And so it created a conversation, it created a hashtag, it created a larger movement, and we worked on it quite intensely. We're hoping to go back to working on the Libya campaign because of how intensified the situation has become. But it is, I will say, and it's something that goes back to why we're doing all of this. It's a lot of work. It's not, doing other kinds of campaigns where we stop deportations, for example, from several countries. Is we're dealing with governments that are susceptible to public pressure, that are susceptible to lobbying, that are functioning. Libya is a country with immense governance issues. I mean, we can talk about that. That's a whole different conversation. But creating change in Libya is very difficult. We are more than willing to try, but it requires a lot of time. So it's definitely something that we want to do. And even though we might not be able to change everything, if we can alleviate some of the suffering through our campaigning work, that's something that we also want to do. But just to put that into context, it's something we've done in the past. It's something we want to continue doing, but it's a very big problem. And so it will require a lot of time on our part. And that's something we can only do if we are doing this full time or part time. Noam, do you want to add something?
Thank you, Vanessa. You already mentioned everything. Yeah, it takes a lot of time and a lot of like workforce also, because we need to campaign. If there isn't any support from the public, it's so hard. So like we have to remember that we have to do everyone here, but we need someone who help us also to do, because in the past we do with the Turkish. When people deported to Eritrea, we try to do something with cooperative with Amnesty International, but it's not easy to do like alone. Thank you.
Thank you both. Another question was, I think a big thing within the Habesha, like within the Eritrean community, is like the language barrier. So as an Arabic speaker, and the need for kind of more language and more stuff coming out that is applicable and like kind of that they're able to read and kind of process. So do you want to speak to that?
Sure. I don't know, Leah, do you want to speak a bit about? We've talked a lot about our goal around languages. So something that has come up a lot is obviously like most of our work is done in English. There's different reasons for that, but when I started out in 2013 with One Day Seyoum, we wanted to fill a gap, and that gap was that young people who were born outside of the country, who didn't speak Tigrinya, didn't have a space to get involved. And so our choice to be in English is both because of capacity. I mean, there are definitely people now, a part of the, especially of the core team. I mean, I'm pointing mostly at Loam and Alexander, who speak perfect fluent Tigrinya, but that was definitely like a capacity thing too. Like our Tigrinya wasn't good enough to like be writing reports in Tigrinya and stuff like that at the time. But it was also very intentional because the people who don't speak as much Tigrinya, who don't consume social media content in Tigrinya or like, you know, in Noguez, we wanted to engage those people who were being kind of left out. So our work was really done in with that intention. But as we've grown and as that mission has expanded, and the goal obviously and continues to be to engage as many people as possible, we really, really want to expand our programming to different languages, specifically Arabic and Tigrinya. And it's something that, again, with more time and resources, we're able to do. For example, our magazine is only published in English, but we're in the process of finding translators to have it published in both Arabic and Tigrinya. We're hoping to start specific programs within our communications that targets those audiences, because sometimes translating something doesn't really help. You know, most people who consume stuff in English don't have lived experience of the Eritrean, you know, human rights crisis. So our content is kind of made with that intention, and telling an Eritrean who's already left, you know, what happened to them is quite, you know, redundant. So instead, we would love to kind of focus our political education content, for example, or you know, around history, around around capacity building, in Tigrinya and Arabic, because we think that would be more useful. But yeah, it's an ongoing effort. It's definitely something we think about, but it does take a lot of time. So it might take a little bit of time from our side.
Great, thank you. Leah, did you want to add, or from a comms perspective?
Yeah, the only thing I would add is just I know a few folks have asked, is there a way that they can join or participate? I think translation support would be huge. So I know we have a join page on our website. If you go to that link and join the organization and let us know if that's something you'd like to support, it'd be very much welcomed.
And that is a perfect segue to the next question. I know, Vanessa, you talked a bit on how folks can get involved. Some questions that we got are around, is it possible to apply for multiple positions within the internship program? And speaking just to kind of what type of volunteer work there is, opportunities there are.
Of course. I mean, if we could, we'd have like a billion volunteers and members of our team. But it's something, again, as I said, we've tried and tested so many different approaches. And right now the structure is that we have, you know, one or two people focusing on each team, and then we work with members to help out when needed. So for example, if we need help with the campaigns team and they know they have a specific task, we send out text messages to people who've already signed up before. So people have said, like, for example, I want to help with campaigns, we'll message them, and we're supposed to like really improve this program. So like this is difficult as well. Sometimes it's easier to just do it yourself, but the goal is to engage as many people as possible. So that's something we actively do. At the same time, we do add new positions, sometimes short-term positions, or sometimes it's long-term positions within the team. It's also internships. So there's different ways that people can like contribute with their time and skills to the organization. And you're also very welcome to reach out yourself. There's people who've reached out and we haven't thought about engaging them. But the reason we don't take on as many people as we would wish is because it takes a lot of time, and sometimes it's less useful to have a lot of people working on the same thing, and it could be more strategic and impactful to have fewer people, but more people can come and go as well, and they can get involved again through signing up as a member is the first step, and then checking the list for tasks, second step, and then third step, if you want to do even more, look out for any positions. And if you don't see any, contact us and we'll see what we can do.
Great, thank you. The next question is around educational plans or political education opportunities or any upcoming meetings that we have that we may be able to put on folks' radar.
I'm gonna hand over to Alex to speak a bit more about the education, because that's like it's both in person and online, and we don't have anything like that we can publish yet that we can talk about yet. But maybe Alex, you can talk a little bit about like what kind of stuff we are thinking about doing and what countries we've been looking at, potentially online as well. And so that's okay.
Okay, great. So we are currently planning on doing trainings online and also in person. We're planning on doing capacity building trainings online and other movement building trainings in person. We have activists and other human rights advocates that are based in Uganda and also in Europe that we have already contacted and are in the process of designing different types of projects and approaches. So that's where we're at right now. And I hope that answers the question.
Thanks, Alex. And also, I will add, we are reaching out to groups as well to see like what people are interested in doing. So if you're a part of any group, if you're an independent activist and you want to do capacity building in any way, whether it's like one-off session or coming to your country to work together, please do contact us, because we're open to suggestions and collaborations at all times.
And to that point, Seyoum, regarding your question about the possibility for interviews, there's a question about interviews with folks on One Day Seyoum's team for a dissertation. I'll drop our email in the chat and we can offline to coordinate around that with Vanessa, if that's cool. Okay. The next question is regarding the campaign program. How do we successfully coordinate and execute it despite being in different parts of the world? Which I think is
Dimiano, Luam, do you guys want to talk about that?
Luam, you can do it.
You have the mic, maybe.
Okay, so I know for our team, the fact that we are global, I think maintaining like communication and internally is like a big part in being able to ensure that we're consistent across the board and across our campaigns, especially seeing the fact that the scope of them is pretty wide. I think we talked about issues that we're supporting both back home and as well as across the continent and even with outside of the African, like thinking about other countries. So I think that that's the biggest part, ensuring consistency and like making sure that our campaigns are always hitting the mark. And I think if you're constantly a presence in this space, it shows that it's more than just one-off campaigns. And I think that that's an important part in showing our dedication to the issues. Vanessa, I don't know if you want to add to that beyond.
Yeah, one of the core issues that I credit the Eritrean government for creating solely in our context is that we can't mobilize inside of the country. So, the best way to mobilize, and that's why we brought up the community mobilization aspect around socializing and kind of community building and why that's essential. It might sound like, why does socializing matter when we're talking about human lives and human rights? But when it comes to building movements, socializing is at the core of it, because at the end of the day, we're all human and we all need human connection. Like, we can't be talking to robots all day and not exist in community. And it does create like a stronger movement. So we struggle with that because most of us are based in like different parts of the world. Other people that I know who are activists, they can go, whenever we do trainings together, they're like, oh, you should knock on doors, or you should bring people together for meetings in cafes and stuff like that. But we can't necessarily do that because, first of all, when we started off, we weren't many who were anti-government and who were anti-government publicly. And then out of those people, there weren't many who actually wanted to do something as well. So we weren't that many, but then we would find each other online and we would build that community online. And I think to answer the question is to say that we've done everything that we can to kind of build community globally. We're so grateful for the internet because without that, it wouldn't have been possible, of course. And we just find ways that we can show numbers online, even if we're not many. Purple for Seyoum is a good example where we got a lot of people together and we were very intentional about the messaging, the colors, the symbolism around all of it. And we made such a big splash that we got a response. We got progress in a campaign that had been stagnant since she was imprisoned, almost 7 or whatever years it had been at that point. And so that to me is a good example of like us already having a strong community, people feeling really connected to One Day Seyoum. At that point, we were also very, very active. It was right before lockdown and after lockdown was our most active time because of, not just because of lockdown actually, but because the 2018 peace deal had happened quite recent, like before that. And we'd use that time to really mobilize a lot of people. We were meeting we had an intro meeting every week and a members meeting every 2 weeks. We're sending out emails almost every day. Our membership was incredibly connected, and people felt that they were part of something larger. And we could really see the difference in the ways that our campaigning was done at the time. So creating that community, feeling really connected has been key to kind of bridging that. And I think from like a team perspective, we all work online, we all communicate online. We see each other sometimes if we're in the same place, but that doesn't happen often. Some of them I haven't even met in person. So it's thanks to platforms like these that we were able to connect and work together. Sorry, that was a bit long, but I'm very passionate about this issue.
Thank you. And the next question is around anonymity, thinking about the security concerns and working in such a sensitive space, kind of how we're open to that and our approach around that within our organization internally.
Do you want to answer that, Dina, or do you want to?
Sure. We obviously understand the sensitivity and how the security concerns that there are around speaking on issues that pertain to Eritrea, especially from those that are not back home. So we offer all members the opportunity to stay anonymous, whether that's you not wanting to disclose your name, your face, et cetera, in whatever capacity you feel most comfortable. I think that's really important in ensuring that kind of the safety and the comfort of everyone that works and supports this.
Of course. And even joining, we have to think about safety for us as well, because, as Eritrean government activists, like there are many groups that have experienced infiltrations and all of that. So there's like, a balance that has to be had. But in terms of public anonymity, like that's obviously, that's completely up to you. And we've never had any incidents of anyone's identity kind of being leaked or anything. We're quite strict on that safety aspect. But working with us intimately as a team, having access to other people's information would require at least 1 or 2 people on our team, like, at least knowing who you are. I think that's like a key requirement. But public engagement will never be required. Everyone who's here today, we've had long conversations of whether or not they want to be on or off camera, what names we should have, if they want to have their first, last name, all those things. We're super aware of that, and we take that like very seriously. But there's like, you can't be completely anonymous, like even to us at least.
Great. And being a European resident, someone asked about Eritrean organizations within Amsterdam that you might know of. I don't know. I feel like our scope is pretty international here at ODS, but I'm not sure if there are region-specific ones that you may be able to speak to.
We have quite a lot of members in Holland or the Netherlands, actually. So we could also connect you with like other members, and we could think about like a members meetup. And there's also, I didn't mention this before, but a lot of members are, it's kind of connected to the in-person objective, doing more in-person activities. A lot of people want to organize more in-person activities, and we're working on creating like handbooks that people can use to set these up. So hopefully we can do meetups. But I will also think about, there are a few like Dutch organizations. The Blue Revolution has, we're going to have groups, active groups there too. So we can think about to connect you to other people who are there.
Amazing. And are you able to speak to our process for submitting applications for grants that we may be applying to?
Denai, do you want to speak more about this? Like how we apply for grants, or?
Yeah, the question is, what is the mechanism for submitting applications for the offered grants?
I mean, we don't offer grants, but in terms of what we apply, yeah, then I can speak a bit more about that.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, and then Vanessa, if I leave anything out, feel free to chime in. Yeah, we don't currently offer grants, but in terms of how we're approaching grant applications in the future, we're currently working on our fundraising strategy and identifying donors, and then we as a team will be submitting grant applications to further a lot of the programming that we mentioned during this presentation. So that's kind of our approach moving forward. But Vanessa, feel free to mention anything I may have left out.
That's perfect.
Amazing. Thank you both. There's a question around Eritrean nationalism, which I think we touched on a little bit, and how it can often blind and kind of serve as an obstacle to the movement, especially being how common it is. How do we handle this challenge when trying to promote awareness and engagement and kind of build this community aspect that we're speaking to?
I think, does anyone want to start with that question? Because it's something that most of us have experienced and understand. Maybe Luam, Diana, maybe Simon. I haven't heard from him.
Yeah, sure. I can say a little bit. I mean, my personal opinion, I think nationalism is all about framing, and you can be a nationalist and have different politics than somebody else. It just depends on what you believe is, properly representative of your country's legacy and history. Now, people who are nationalists and that, I think the question is speaking to people whose nationalism blinds them from critique. I think that's a matter of framing, which can kind of be combated through all of the programs we're trying to launch now, whether it be conversations in the podcast, newsletters, fundraising campaigns to raise awareness about issues that are pretty distinctly un-Eritrean and very much against the people themselves. And so I think it's important to reframe the conversation and get more control over the narrative in terms of what actually qualifies uh, as something that you should be proud of Eritrea for. And I think that, again, is a rhetorical battle. It is a projects battle, and that will all kind of be really elucidated through the work that we're doing here at ODS. So.
Great. Anything to add, Vanessa?
Yeah, I mean, this is something that, again, our origins is like within a context where vast majority of Eritreans were pro-government, at least publicly, and I think even privately. And seeing that shift happen over the years, I mean, we've had countless members that I've spoken to, both in our meetings and who've messaged us or contacted us, and have said that a lot of your work helped me realize or see things from a different perspective. And I think it's important to see like this nationalism. It's not fixed completely. It's powerful. It's been manipulated by the government to work, and it's very effective, but it's not fixed. And there's a lot of people who've moved from being blindly pro-government to being anti-government or at least critical of the government. And I think there's a lot of basic information that just isn't shared. There's a lot of propaganda that is never debunked, especially like these audiences of people that we target, mostly people who are raised outside of the country, or even people who've been raised in dictatorial like Eritrea. I speak about this quite often, but there are people who are raised by the Eritrean in the Eritrean country and have only had the Eritrean government as like a main source of information, and obviously are taught by them of what nationalism is, why they're being attacked. And nationalism has been weaponized to, make people scared. They're like, oh, I love Eritrea, we all love Eritrea, and we might be attacked. And because we might get attacked, these are the things that we have to do to protect our country. And that's a very legitimate kind of like reasoning for people. And this has been done all over the world, but it can be unpacked as well, and it can be dismantled. So I think what Simon said was perfect, because it's understanding nationalism as like it's a narrative, and we can help dismantle that narrative, because at the core of it, hopefully, people care about Eritrea, and that's where we all the baseline. And the question is like what people been taught that caring about Eritrea means or looks like, and who is the enemy if you love Eritrea. So I think that's something that we work around, and we focus just very basic information, and that's really helpful. We've had a very good reputation. Like, we've never been forced to retract anything. We've always published like verified information, whether it's through our own research that Luam was talking about earlier, or whether it's through secondary sources. But all of our information is always on point. And because of that, it's very hard to argue. And it usually then goes into personal insults, harassment, etc. And I think when people with more brain cells than others see that, they understand like this is something more accurate. But obviously, it requires a lot of work, and it doesn't mean that we're gonna change everybody. And I think it's also important to sometimes, like a lot of Eritreans, like how we're ever going to live together as a nation, or like we're going to come together as a movement. You look at any country in the world, there's no country that's completely unified or where everyone is completely on the right side of history. You just need enough people to do it. And I think people will be able to coexist. There will be different, hopefully, political parties. Not everyone has to agree on everything, but as long as we're the majority, that's all that we need, essentially. So, yeah.
Great, thank you. A question around previous editions of the magazine. I can take this one. If you go on our website, which is onedayseyoum.org, under our programs, if you go to the communications tab, you'll be able to see past iterations of our magazine. Okay, are we open to collaborating with other organizations who have similar causes, such as Reclaim Eritrea and others? I think there's a lot of opportunities to collaborate here. So any thoughts there, Vanessa?
Of course, we worked with Reclaim Eritrea since they were founded, and we've always worked with, I think, most, if not all, Eritrean human rights organizations in some way. We've worked together. So yeah, that's always a possibility, and any groups can always reach out to us.
Great. And then around the lobbying aspect of campaigns, how successful has it been influenced policymakers, particularly within the Eritrean political landscape? So any kind of issues with resistance and navigating these challenges? I'll say from my experience on the campaign team, the lobbying has been not necessarily within Eritrean policymakers, but thinking about lobbying US policymakers on behalf of Seyoum, for example. We spoke a little bit about us lobbying Turkey decision makers within in other countries, like particularly within Europe and other places. So I don't think that there's obviously resistance in engaging with policymakers and thinking about their buy-in and stakes in any dynamic, but I can't say that we've necessarily done that within Eritrean decision makers, at least from my work. Vanessa, I don't know.
No, I mean, we don't really directly lobby the Eritrean government. We used to, do the petitions. We used to do the email campaigns where we would like bombard their inboxes or with stuff on like specific anniversaries quite early on. But it's kind of speaks to the larger campaign objectives for the team, at least, and for the organization to be more strategic. And there's symbolism, and then there's strategic, productive work. And we will always continue to raise names. We will never not do something on the anniversaries. We will never give up on talking about these individuals who are so vital to the core of the Eritrean fabric. But there are other ways we think that we can influence them. So maybe Dimiana or Luam, if you want to speak more about the funding kind of campaign and that, like, because I feel like that will help give an example on how we engage with the Eritrean political landscape without directly like lobbying them.
Luam, do you want to take this one?
Okay, thank you, Dimana. Like the problem with the Eritrean, like when you do advocacy with Eritrean and lobbying and any kinds of work to do with the Eritrean community, is the hardest thing is the security issue, the first one, and also there isn't enough information that you can gather. So if you couldn't able to gather enough information, it's so hard to go some international organization or to do lobbying with other countries. But in like we are try to do like deep research and we try to contact some people, those who are affected. So even to do this, it's difficult because most of the people that you contact them are far away from you and in insecure place like Ethiopia. When you do campaign with Ethiopia, you have to contact some people inside Ethiopia. So it's so hard to get the right information and gather variable information at the same time. But the first thing that we do last time with Turkish, we try to study about the country, what kinds of human rights mechanism they are signing, and then we go through that and contacted some human rights lawyers and human rights NGOs in the country and try to negotiate with the government, because as we all know, it's so hard to negotiate with the Eritrean. You couldn't do nothing, but outside of the Eritrean, most of the other countries, they sign different human rights like treaties and different other kinds of they have their own regulation also, so you can going there and discuss about that with them. So it's more either way. And also, like, we at this time also we will try to research about the funding, the Eritrean government, what they do. And because there are so many people that they don't know what's happening inside Eritrea and how the Eritrean governments are working. Like, even we are here in outside of Eritrea and we are still funding the governments in order to run like to continue the dictatorship. So it's a little hard, but we are trying to use all the human rights mechanisms and the people that we have at the same time.
Amazing. And to answer a question in the chat about can anybody participate, we welcome members from all countries, all places, all backgrounds. I think we value having a diverse team. I think it brings a lot of different points of views to the work that we do, which is really crucial, especially in things like this. Does the plan include bringing the issues to decision-making centers or making them a global issue? I think this is still regarding the lobbying.
Sure. Yeah, the goal is to, like, again, meaningfully, like, and strategically campaign. And so in our efforts, as Loa mentioned, to target the funding sources of the government, that's what we want to focus on when it comes to targeting the Eritrean government. I think, again, targeting them around issues like, oh, do this, or open up, implement the constitution, open up with the parliament, have elections. They're not listening to us. We've asked them for countless times at this point. So we're engaging with them a bit more hands-on, and by hopefully attacking their funding streams. That's like our way of engaging with them, and we're hoping to engage the global community to support this. And that's the kind of what our lobbying efforts will be focusing on moving forward. That's what our research will be pushing. Our research will be focusing on human rights abuses affecting Eritreans in the country within this campaign, and then the action point will be the targeting of the funding, whether it's loans that they get, grants that they get, development aid that they get, whether it's a 2% tax, whether it's their festivals where they fundraise money. These are all funding streams, and without money, this government can't operate. So that's where we think we will kind of bring people together on a global scale to make that happen. And when it comes to refugee issues, which is our more active and more, I guess, quote unquote, successful campaigning work that we've done and that we want to continue doing, that often requires global kind of mobilization as well, depending on the issue. As Damiana mentioned, Turkey, we got a response. They haven't deported anyone since the campaign, thank God. And that's something that, that's something that we think is needed and should be happening everywhere where Eritrean refugees are targeted. But that capacity doesn't exist because it takes a lot of effort and time. And a lot of governments know that they can get away with targeting Eritrean refugees because no one speaks up for them. They don't have a government that speaks up for them, and we don't have a civil society that speaks up for them. So we want to make sure that we can make any issue that we focus on, if needed, on a global scale, and if not needed, on in the country, on a domestic level, at least engaging with those decision makers there that have the power to change it.
Great, thank you. The next question is, what is your take on Birgit and Hamadou and their actions in the past few years since they've called for armed resistance, and wondering what ODS's stance is on this?
Alex, do you want to take this question? Like you have Alex and Delight, because we work with capacity building.
So my personal views are, I think we need to equip any Eritrean movement that is trying to trying to fight for Eritrean rights, fight for their own rights, and I feel like maybe Birgit and Hamadou might lack a few skills on maybe lobbying and other things. So as part of ODS, I think what we can do is give them trainings on specific areas that they need in order to help them in their movements. I think that's one way. Yeah. yeah, but thank you.
Cool. I'll add stuff, and Denise, feel free to join in as well if you have any thoughts on this. But I've been quite vocal, I think, as an individual on my stance with Brianna Hamidou. I think we mentioned this throughout the presentation. Like, this is an issue that the Eritrean government, and I think specifically Alex spoke about this. The best way to make sure there's no resistance against you is to remove key information and skills from the people who would resist you. And these are young people. Eritrean young people have intentionally been deprived of the education, the skills, the safety to resist the Eritrean government. And we can't talk about Eritreans who are raised in Eritrea without acknowledging that. That doesn't mean that there are certain opinions that have been said that, of course, me as an individual and One Team as an organization doesn't stand by. We also don't believe in armed resistance in terms of, against the Eritrean government as a method. But that doesn't mean that we don't support individuals and activists who have experienced the Eritrean government firsthand and now are saying that we want to speak up for ourselves, we want to do something, but might not necessarily have the right tools or strategy to do so. And I think acknowledging the fact that these are people who happened to them, like these are issues that happened um, in such a grave scale that we can't even begin to comprehend if you haven't experienced it yourself. And just being proud, I think, as an individual, but also as an organization, we've seen the movement grow in the past 11 and a half years that we've existed. And the shift that's happened since the Blue Revolution, Gina Hamada, started is remarkable. It's young people coming out, standing up for themselves, standing up for their family members back home. And we want to engage with them, and they can teach us so much. I mean, from our conversations with them, half of the strategy has been written, based off their lived experience, based off their understanding of the movement. And same way, our understanding of campaigning, movement building, resistance, lobbying, all of these things are essential to be, successful. And so we think it's important to have that knowledge exchange and work together to fill the gaps. Anyone can acknowledge that, other people have a problem, but the real change starts if you can acknowledge it with yourself. And we know what One Day Seyoum struggles with, which is why we've created this plan and we've allocated resources to fill those gaps within our own organization. And I think for Brianna Hamidou, that's really important as well, for them to realize where do we lack, and knowing there are people who want to help their organizations, like One Day Seyoum, there are other organizations that, that could help, and we can grow together as a movement. But I think it doesn't mean that you are against the movement if you criticize them. I think that's important in the conversation overall.
Great, thank you. I wanted to acknowledge, I think Princey's comment. They shared that their great uncle has been in prison since 2004, and I'm really sorry to hear that. And hopefully, this work can kind of advocate for the release and for him and many others like him. What can we expect from ODS in the coming days, and when might we see the announcement of the availability of grants in the future? I encourage you to stay engaged with us on social media and sign up for our newsletter, where we send out updates regarding our work, opportunities to join and volunteer, and things of that nature. Vanessa, availability of grants in the future, is that something that we plan on doing?
No, not directly. I think, through our capacity building work, we're hoping to provide grants to civil society groups and work with them to implement projects. But that's something more long term, and it's not something that people can apply for. So there won't be any information about that anytime soon. But yeah, if you're interested in, if you have any ideas, feel free to reach out and we can see if we can create something together.
Yes, and I'm not sure if it was mentioned on the call, but our email will be info@onedayseyoum.org. So any questions, inquiries you may have, feel free to email that alias, and we'll be happy to coordinate from there. A question regarding political education, specifically towards the youth. How is progress in that area, and how are folks responding to that, given the scenario?
Alex, I'll start with you, and then I can fill up.
Okay, great. So currently we are just preparing content on what kind of topics that we can discuss on. What are the pressing issues around around the Eritrean community? So that's where we're at currently. So yeah, I'll let Vanessa finish this one.
Sure. Yeah. So as Alex said, we've been preparing a lot of our programming in all our teams in the past, I'd say year and a half, and really building the strategy and the plan. But we have implemented a lot of our activities in the past, even though we're like, it's a part of our forward-looking kind of strategy. So, for example, around political education, around capacity building, we did our first activity in December 2023 in Uganda, where we worked with a group of Eritrean activists, all with lived experience, Eritrean refugees who are living there, who are also active. And it was an incredible experience. And it was kind of what laid the basis for the program that we're building with the Night and like Alex at the moment. It was met with such positive and just openness. It was such an engaged group. We did the training in collaboration with Amnesty International. And so we had a lot of experienced trainers who were there, who have worked with movements all over the world. And they said, I will never forget it. They're like, we've never worked with such a group of people who are so passionate and who don't want to leave. And the people were asking the participants like, why is this so short? It was 1 week. And to us, 1 week training, sometimes you have to bribe people to make it, like to these kind of trainings, because it gets boring, it's kind of dragged out. But you could see that there was so much passion for the Eritrean cause. And so they were just in any way or form like want to learn more and want to improve their ability to make a difference. And that would just like to us showcase the hunger that exists for knowledge, for improvement, for the movement. And it was so encouraging. And that's what we're hoping to do. And we've had a lot of consultations with different groups across the world around these issues too. And everyone is very excited and ready to take on whatever like programs that we offer. So it's been very encouraging.
Amazing, thank you. And I think the last question that we have in the chat is for Luam. Are there specific research areas that you're focusing on in your work?
Okay, thank you. And for me, at this one, currently, I'm doing research with Eritrean refugee in Ethiopia, the current situation, deportation, and overall all the problems that happens in Ethiopia. So I'm doing this topic now.
Yes. And Loam has also, I mean, if you want to talk about, you've done quite a lot of research in the past year on different issues. And you can maybe, if you want to mention some of the other issues happening in area that we're hoping to cover in our research, that will be tied to our funding campaign as well.
Okay. Like in the past, we are doing the research on Turkey deportation, and we try to gather information from those people who their parents, their families deported to Eritrea, and to try to gather information and bring to make it as a research and bring a campaign with Amnesty International. And at this time also we work with that, and we have so many other potential research we want to do also with the different human rights abuse in Eritrea and defunding Eritrean governments and women violation in Eritrea also. So if we got potential like donors or some people also who can help us with that, we are really welcome.
Amazing, thank you, Luam. Anything you want to add, Vanessa? Or you're muted, but no.
I said, no, that's perfect.
Okay, great. Okay, there is one last question around how open we are to collaborating with other human rights and political organizations, which we have done in the past with Amnesty International, human rights commissions, etc. And we're definitely open to continuing to do so because that's a key part in kind of amplifying and getting more folks involved in the movement. Anything else you guys want to add, or?
I think that's perfect. Yeah, again, our work depends on collaborations, and I think something we spoke about before, which I'll just bring back again. There's a lot of people and institutions that can help if they're engaged properly. It just requires organizations like us to really take the lead. So to give examples, like a lot of our work has been done in collaboration with other, especially more established groups, like institutions. But if we don't have the capacity to like engage them, for Luam to do the research, for Dimiana to plan the campaign, for Leah to publish things on social media and kind of get people involved, then that work isn't going to happen. So we really think it's important that there are groups like us that can actually drive that change in those collaborations. But when those collaborations happens, it's incredible because, for example, working with the United Nations is, we can't compare it to the capacity that we have as a small Eritrean human rights organization that most, the Turkish government has never heard about One Day Seyoum. They barely, engaged with Eritrean work in the past. But when we did the campaign, the United Nations were able to contact the Turkish government, and they offered a response to the United Nations. But it was Luam's research that did that. It was Luam's, the people that she had spoken to, the people that like all of the time that she's put in, and so it's really dependent on us having the ability to also do so. And the same thing applies with us working with Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch. We are able to provide a lot of useful information and time, and so we love doing it, and we think it's the only way we can succeed. But it really depends on us also having the time and resources to do so. I think is that the final question, Yana?
Yes.
Perfect. I thought, does anyone have any closing comments from the team? Nothing. Cool. Okay, if there's any final questions, feel free to add them in case there's like a minute or so that we could answer any last questions. If not, feel free to contact us on any social media platforms, on our email. We're super excited to get started with this new phase of the organization, to continue the work that we've done for more than 11 years now, and to hopefully, as we said, become an entity within the wider Eritrean ecosystem that will live on for generations and will continue to defend Eritrean human rights, regardless of who's in power or regardless of what governments are abusing them, whether it's our own or others. I want to add our last slide. Let's see here if that's possible. I don't know if, Dimiana, if you can add the slide again. Or the presentation. Okay. Until then, I'll bring us back, and then we'll just add the presentation as a final thing. But I just want to say thank you to everyone who have, come today to listen to us, and a special thanks to the entire team. I am so grateful that One Day Seyoum have you, and we've worked together in so many different capacities. Some of you for, I think Alex is our longest long-term member, and some of you since last year, 2 years ago. But you've dedicated so much of your time and your effort as volunteers to this organization, and I don't think a lot of people understand. Most people actually think that everyone here is like working here, but all of you are juggling so many other things at the same time, and it is really your passion to the Eritrean cause that has enabled this to happen. Of course, your talents outside of that, your professional experience that you all bring together to make our work possible. And I'm really, really proud of the work that One Day Seyoum does, and none of that would be possible without any of you. So just want to say thank you to the team. Thank you to all of our members, all of the volunteers, past and present. One Day Seyoum has been so through like so many different people who've contributed, loads of different people, including my dear friends who all contribute in whatever way that they can, loads of Eritreans, loads of allies. So thank you to all of you. And the final thing I'll bring out is, if you want to support, let's see here. If you want to support the organization, and you can become a member, but of course you can also donate now. This is our first time opening up our donations. You can go on our website. This should be quite a straightforward process. If you have any questions about it, if you have any questions before you donate, feel free to reach out as well. But we really appreciate it, and we really think that together as a community we can, create the organization that we think that our people deserve. So that being said, oops, I did not mean that to happen. Thank you, everybody, and have a great end of your weekend.